To discuss this and the recent criticism of the Pentagon program that funds these police departments, I was joined earlier by Michael Shank, professor at George Mason University and co-author of a recent report on police militarization. I first asked him how it's determined which equipment goes where to which police department.
They actually don't determine. It's a pretty simple process. Let's say you're a police chief of a small town like Roanoke Rapids in North Carolina. 16,000 people live there. All they really have to do is apply online. There's a one-page form. They say, we want an MRAP, and the Pentagon is able to give away almost 20,000 MRAPs from the war zone, from Iraq and Afghanistan. They've given maybe 1,000 so far, along with 100,000 assault weapons. But it's a pretty simple process. There's not a needs assessment. There's very little accountability after they get it, and they have to use it within a year.
So you mean there's no justification that a police department has to put forward for needing a tank?
Correct. So you see towns across the country getting equipment that they actually don't even need. For example, a small town in Georgia getting boats and scuba gear, but there's no water nearby. So there's no needs assessment whatsoever.
Why do they get it? Why do they believe they need this?
That's arguable as to why they think they need it. Perhaps they want to show off their toys. You see a lot of pictures across the country of police chiefs standing in front of their MRAPs, their mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, very proud. Perhaps they're watching the military overseas and learning lessons there, thinking that we can do a shock and awe approach in America. But this is a serious threat to the American way of life. Small-town America will no longer be the same thanks to this militarization.
And am I correct in saying that a large portion of that budget has gone to rural cities, smaller police departments across the country?
Big and small, but the stories of small towns are becoming more and more ubiquitous. $4 billion has been given by the Pentagon in surplus equipment. The town only has to pay for the delivery, but then they have to pay for maintenance, and so taxpayers are bearing the cost going forward of roughly $20,000 to $40,000 just to do maintenance on a $700,000 vehicle.
And I don't think this is something a lot of people think about at all.
No. Or know about, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned, we're now starting to hear a lot of criticism over the program. We've seen community leaders speak out. We're now seeing lawsuits, and I'm assuming we're going to start seeing more of those. What do you make of the public outcry? I mean, is this a signal that we're turning a page here?
What an incredible opportunity based on very unfortunate circumstances in Ferguson, because we've been working this at the Friends Committee on National Legislation, where I also work, and at George Mason for the last year. But of course, people who participated in Occupy saw armored tanks come down the street, armored personnel carriers and MRAPs in response, but Seattle WTO protests also saw the same. So this is very much a tipping point. So I'm very heartened by the outcry. Congressman Hank Johnson in the House leading a bill that's now bipartisan with Congressman Labrador, Republican. You're going to see the Senate in September.
I want to ask you about that because you co-wrote a paper with Rep. Hank Johnson called Stop Treating America Like a War Zone. Can you tell me what kind of recommendations are put forward?
Yep. In the legislation, we will prohibit the following. So tanks, Humvees, armored personnel carriers, MRAPs, like we've mentioned, assault weapons, grenade launchers, anything that looks, sounds like a military, we're prohibiting. Anything else coming from the war zone, more benign nature, whether it's an unarmored drone or a helicopter for surveillance, that can pass through. But the really armored stuff, we're prohibiting. Now, that's only $4 billion worth of surplus that's gone to police. Police can get armored and militarized by another program in Department of Homeland Security. Terrorism grants are given to police. The police then buy new equipment, which is handy for the defense industry because they're supplying new equipment, and $34 billion has been given through the DHS program. So militarization of a small town America can either happen through the DHS program or through the Pentagon program.
So are you tackling that as well, or?
We will get there. We decided to take a piece that we could chew initially, and it looks like Senator McCaskill and Senator Coburn and Paul are going to do it in the Senate.
Yeah. Absolutely. And given what we're seeing on a community level, do you think we'll actually see something passed? I know that this is supposed to be presented in September, am I correct?
That's right, introduced in September. We think so. It's bipartisan. I think people are very upset with what is also the SWATification of America. You're seeing 150 SWAT raids a day by departments like Department of Education, who's using a SWAT team to just issue a warrant, a simple warrant. So I think people are very upset. This is the tipping point.
That's incredible. And just recently we heard that the Davis City Council in California told its police department that it had 60 days to come up with a plan to get rid of its MRAP. And I guess, you know, they're falling to some community pressure. Do you think we're going to see police departments maybe scale back a little bit on their own, or perhaps implement new programs, body cameras, et cetera? Do you think that they'll take their own initiatives to do this?
Well, San Jose Police Department just said that they're going to give their MRAP back to the Pentagon, so good news there. I think there's been enough bad news about the waste, fraud, and abuse in this program. People selling, police chiefs, county sheriffs selling their assault weapons online on eBay or giving them away to friends. So there's been enough bad press that I think they'll be forced to do the right thing.
All right. Michael Shank, George Mason University professor, thank you so much for coming on and weighing in on that.
It's great to be here.